The Marty and Laura Show is brought to you by Veterinary Village. With locations throughout Wisconsin, Veterinary Village is dedicated to enhancing the quality of animal and human lives today and into the future. Welcome to the Marty and Laura Show. We have Marty back from her world tour. We're super excited. Coming to you from Louisville, Kentucky this time, I'm pretty sure, instead of a
Yep.
cruise on the Caribbean or Crufts or any of the other places she's been in the last couple of
Or
weeks.
France. Yeah.
France,
Yeah.
yeah, all the things.
Yeah. Next
So,
next week is Texas. God only
yeah,
knows.
yeah, I know. I love it. I love it. So, excellent. So Marty, I believe that today we are going to talk about kind of like the life cycle of dogs, right? Like dogs go through a whole process, and the whole 1 year of human life is, or 7 years of human life is 1 year of dog life, and some of that isn't quite
You know.
right, but it kind of gives
No.
us a feel for what we think of puppy, teenager, adult, elder, right? Sort of that whole process. So let's kind of walk through that and
Yeah.
some of the things that we can do to ease or utilize those different areas of time that we have with our dogs.
Yeah. And everyone says it's too short, and they're right. So we're going to talk about some ways to look at it differently and to understand it better. And there's some pretty cool stuff going on out there. So let's make this a little more tangible.
I love it. Let's go.
All right.
Hit it.
Do it.
So,
So,
we went through a whole bunch of like baby puppy, just got your first dog home. So now let's
yeah.
say our puppy is, it's house trained, it's had all its shots, it's
Ooh,
done all the things,
that was
right?
fast.
I know, we did all
Mm-hmm.
that already. So we've got this young puppy that we want to make a good citizen of the world. What are some of the things that we're thinking about?
Well, I think that general behavior is really important
Mm,
because we don't want them naughty and rowdy and obnoxious and
right,
lifting their legs on things that they shouldn't and knocking down grandma and stealing food from the kids and
right.
the stuff that dogs sometimes
Running
do.
amok.
Um, yeah, exactly. And it's easy for them to run amok. And I think we tend to be, as dog owners, at least I see a lot of it, that people with little dogs kind of let them get away with stuff that you wouldn't let a big dog get
Mm-hmm,
away with.
mm-hmm,
And I understand that because they seem less harmful. It seems like it's really not going to hurt anything if they jump on you and they only weigh 20 pounds or 10 pounds, but it would be different if they weighed 180 pounds. So I'm not really sure why we changed the rules. I don't think it's really in the dog's best interests to let them run amok. I actually was sitting with a friend yesterday at an AKC event, and she was discussing this dog that she had sold to an elderly couple. And in and of itself, that's not a bad thing. I think no matter what age you're in, you should have the opportunity to own a dog that fits your lifestyle. And I think that's really important for young people to learn responsibility, for older people to have companionship and to have a reason to get out of bed and go for a walk and things like that. But this particular dog had no structure in his life, and the people were becoming pretty elderly and the dog was pretty much out of control. And so, much to their disappointment, but to the support of their children, their adult children, they said this dog has to go. He can't stay because it's just dangerous. So it was really interesting because she took the dog back. The breeder took the dog back, as most of us, as responsible breeders that still have the capacity to do that, will do. And she replaced him with someone that had some really great dog training experience.
mm-hmm.
And honestly, within 24 hours, this dog
Yeah.
was a different dog because he had someone that put him on a leash and told him what to do and said, lie down and stay and heel and did some, nothing
Right,
harsh, nothing heavy
right.
duty,
Just
really
structure.
simple, basic structure, basic obedience, the stuff that all of our family dogs should know how to do. And instantly this dog was like, whew, I don't have to be in charge
Yeah.
anymore. This is awesome. Someone is here
Yes.
to tell me what to do, and I respect that.
Yes.
So it was fascinating to watch the
Mm,
turnaround on this particular
mhm.
dog. So I don't think we should be um, complacent about what our dogs can learn even as adults, and how much of a difference we can make by getting them in a household that suits them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very, very important. And if you are in a situation with a young dog and maybe you didn't get off to just the right start and now things are a little bit out of control and you need to do some things to fix that. And there are things you can do. You can, you know, establish a pack order or however you
Order.
think about that, and it makes a tremendous difference in the dog's world, never mind your world.
Right.
So some of the things that we can think about, and I know you're going to add to this, like you said, the dog's attached to you with a leash at all times, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
anytime you're with the dog in the house, the dog is leashed to your body, and that
Yep.
is a
Tethered.
spectacular control piece.
Mm-hmm.
Training the dog a place command. We've talked about that a couple other times. Using your crate is another super
Mm-hmm.
great opportunity. And finding a class. There are classes in every community that will help you learn. Not so much even the dog, but you. And I think that that is an underutilized um, ability for folks to kind of get a handle on what's going on in their homes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, classes shouldn't be overlooked. Even if you've had oodles of experience, decades of experience of training dogs, there's something about going to a dog training class and having to show up the next week with a dog that wasn't any better behaved than it was the week before, and everyone else in the class has a dog that's acting like a rock star and your dog is still acting like a dweeb. That there's a certain amount of peer pressure that forces you into, I guess I better do some event training tonight. And one of the things that you and I have both said is that even when you don't think you're training the dog, you're training the dog.
Yes.
If you turn your back and the dog steals a steak off the breadboard, your dog was just trained.
Yep.
That may not have been the message you meant to send, but that is exactly the message
Yep.
the dog got is, well, when
Hmm.
she's not looking, meat on the breadboard is fair game. When
Mm.
she's out of the room, I can go down the hall to the indoor bathroom, which is usually the extra bedroom or the under the dining room table, and urinate on the floor because it's really cold out and I don't really want to go. And I'd rather use the indoor bathroom than the outdoor bathroom because it's 20 below. So I'll just do that. So I think that it's really important that we have an opportunity to say, our dogs are learning every second. You may spend 10 minutes, figuring out some way that you can keep the dog out of the garbage can. But the dog spends the next 23 hours and 50 minutes figuring out how to undo what you just did, because that's a full time job for them. You have a million other tasks.
Yes.
The dog has one, and that's to undo what you just did. So I think it's really important that we're thoughtful about what our dogs are learning, and how we can structure that a little bit better so that they actually learn the things we meant for them to learn.
Yeah. And that we understand that while our dogs are our friends and they're our family and they're our partners in many ways, the dogs crave leadership. That is what they
Oh
want
yeah,
in life. They want to
absolutely.
be given parameters and direction because without those things, they are left alone to decide for themselves. And dogs just basically don't like that. And when we
No,
anthropomorphize our dogs and say, well, I don't like to be told what to do, so neither should my dog, it doesn't work that way.
no, no. We've got to give them the structure, the direction, because they really do need it. And you're looking at, spending the next 15 or 16 years with this dog. So, if your choice is for them to pull up a chair at the table, you live alone, you eat dinner by yourself every night, you're kind of tired of doing that. And if your choice is to put a plate on the table and have the dog eat with you, go for it. I'm good with that. But be careful what you wish for, because once you've made that decision, it's a lifetime decision. It's like anything you give to, like, I manage staff,
Mm.
right? And if I say to them, okay, we're not going to work after 5 o'clock at night, you're going to get to
Right.
leave every night at 5, and then we decide to extend our hours to 7. Oh yeah, once you've taken that,
Yeah.
once you've given it away, you can't take it back. So realize that anything that you've allowed the dog to learn, is something that they're going to stick with. So if you say, I'm never going to let the dog on the furniture, and then you say, oh, well, it's cold out, and I'm just going to wrap up in a blanket, and sure, you can snuggle up here next to me, and then you decide that that's not a good idea the following week, or you say you can't walk onto the carpet, you can only stay in the uncarpeted part of the house. Whatever you give the dog is something the dog is going to continue to take. So
Right.
remember that it's a lot easier to loosen up than, it's just like kids. If
Right.
you set a curfew at 10 o'clock at night, and then you say, well, you can stay up till midnight, and then you change it back to 10 o'clock, it doesn't really work that way.
No, it
So
doesn't.
think about what you're giving,
Right.
because once you've given it, you're not getting it back. And
And
that's fair. I mean,
I think that's
the
very
dog needs
fair.
to
And I
the dog
think
needs to
that,
tell us that.
yeah, and I think that, I tell people all the time, we have rules. They're so the rules are firm. In other words, they always mean what they mean. They're fair. Like, I'm not going to change
Mhm.
the rules on you, and they're consistent. Same thing. Firm, fair, and consistent tells our
Mhm.
dogs that this is always the rule. And if you
Yeah.
test it, I'm going to tell you no the next time and the next time and the next time. And some
Hmm.
dogs never test it. Some dogs test it a couple times and say, cool. And if you have a
Hmm.
German Wire Hair Pointer, they test it every living day of your life.
All
So,
the time. Hello, is it still the
did you
rule?
really mean it? Did you
Hello.
really mean it? Did you? Yeah, okay.
Hello.
So, and
Yep.
I think
It's
that,
persistent.
yes, the testing phase is a big chunk of what I think of as that sort of those teen years, right? So
Yes.
in a dog, the teen years are really pretty much everything from 6 to 18 months. Would you think that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a little bit of a difference one breed to the next.
Mm,
One of my
big
farm
dogs
dogs,
to
the day
little
she turned,
dogs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the day my youngest farm dog turned 1, I said, I'm gonna let you sleep in the bed tonight. And she was perfect and has been perfect every night since she turned
Right.
1 years old. She never urinated on the floor. She never chewed anything up. I mean, she was perfect. Now, that is not the norm for all farm dogs. So don't get this idea in your
Right.
head. Because I have corgis at 12 that will still chew up anything they can get
Yeah.
their little teeth on.
Yeah.
So you have to realize that not every dog is the same. Not every breed is the same. Some dogs are much more biddable and much more
Mm,
trainable than others. Some dogs require more of a heavy hand. And that's not just by breed, that's by individual, that's by sex. There's a lot of variations. So
yeah.
you want to be careful that you don't use a heavier hand than you need to,
Right.
because dogs will shut down really easily if you are too heavy handed. But on the other hand, you need to have enough control to get what you need. So I have said for years, people don't look like their dogs, they act like their dogs. So I think we see a trend for people that have easygoing dogs to have easygoing personalities,
Hmm.
because they can live together. But if you have a dog that's strong willed, you'd best be strong willed,
Yeah.
or you're going to lose ground.
100%. And that is something. So for example, German Wire Hair Pointers are the dogs I breed and own, and they're very
Starts
strong.
with the word German. It
German.
starts with German.
Yes, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Achtung baby, as my mother used to say. That's
I'm
their
married to a
approach to
German.
life.
I understand
That's
this.
their approach to life. They're very German. And they have rules and they have boundaries and they crave that. Like, they love
Yeah.
that.
Love
And
that.
they will test it and they'll poke it and whatever, but they really do. And so I think of everything with my dogs. You said don't give them anything. Mine is about earning it. You have
Mhm.
earned this X, Y, or Z, this particular
Exactly.
extra credit item. You have earned the opportunity to sit with me on the couch, or you have earned the opportunity to sleep with me in the
Mhm.
bed, or you have earned whatever. Because if
Mhm.
it's just given, then the wire hair just assumes that everything is theirs.
Mhm.
And so I
Exactly.
talk to people all the time like, no, really. No, really. You have to,
Yeah.
and as you say, every breed is different. The Spinoni is a different breed, the farm dog, the golden retriever, the Labrador. I mean, like, everybody is different.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
understanding the dog you have, right? So that whether it's a breed or a crossbreed or what have you, understanding the dog you have and understanding their needs and how you can help them is the best thing that we can do for them.
Absolutely. And there's a really good book. There's a lot of good books out there, but there's a really good book that Patricia McConnell has written,
Hmm.
and it's called Feeling Outnumbered. Now, she used to have a book called Leader of the Pack, and I love that book. It is no longer in print, and she will never print it again because some of the things in there are probably a little out of vogue.
Old school.
As far as, yeah, a little old school, but it wasn't harsh. It was just a
Yeah.
little out of vogue. So she said, I'm not reprinting it and I'm not going to rewrite it. And she's retired, and that's cool and good for her. But she wrote a book called Feeling Outnumbered. Even if you only have one dog, it's a really useful book in helping you to understand the hierarchy, which
Mm.
is different than dominance, which is different than
Yes.
submissive. I mean, there's a lot of terms that get thrown around, and they don't always reflect accurately what
Confused.
we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to teach the dogs, so, and some dogs differently than others, that
Mm.
who goes through the door first has
Yes.
status, and who
Yes.
gets on the furniture who's status. Age in the dog world has status, so the older the dog, the more status they
Okay.
typically have. The bigger the dog, the more status they typically have. Females typically should have more status than the males.
Who
A
eats
male dog should,
first?
yeah,
Who eats
exactly.
first? Yeah.
Exactly. And you can control those things because by doing that, you change the dog's status. And in the world of a family, you, your partner, and the kids are one, two, three, and four.
Hmm.
Number 57, 58, and 59 are the dogs, not number six, seven, and eight. We're talking
Right.
way down the list.
Right.
Because again, you have to teach the dogs certain manners have to
Mhm.
happen. You're not allowed to knock the kids down the stairs. You're not allowed to push grandma over. You're not allowed to jump on the UPS guy. um there's just certain things you're not allowed to do. So without giving them those tools, those pieces of guidance, they're not going to really understand. Now, many years ago, I was in the exam room one day with a Great Dane puppy and this passel of children and a parent. There was one parent in the room and all these kids and screaming and Great Dane and all this stuff. And I'm trying to carry on a conversation with the owner, and I was talking to her, and all of a sudden the dog dropped to the floor, literally dropped. And I looked at the owner and I said, "Oh, what was that?" And she said, "Oh," and this is a person who had no dog experience. She said, "Well, somebody told us that if the kids put their arms over their head, that should be an emergency down for the dog. And that
Awesome.
way the dog can't steal food, the dog can't run across
Right.
the street."
Right.
I'm like, "Oh my God, like that is the smartest thing that a non-dog person ever
Genius.
told me." Genius, absolute genius, because they can't steal the hot dog out of the kid in the backyard when they're running around with 16 friends, and they can't run into traffic. If you put your hand up and the dog drops,
Mhm.
the dog is safe, unless it's going to, something weird happens. The dog is going to be safe. So I went, "Oh my God, like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen a non-dog."
Yeah.
And I've said again for years, there are people who have dogs and then there are dog people.
Yes.
There are some people who are just talented, intuitively good with dogs, and then there's other people who love dogs, but
Hmm.
they may not be skilled, intuitive, experienced,
Right.
and it may come with time, and some people never get it. And that's not their fault. It's just some people never get
Just
it.
what it is.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah, it's like if you're trying to get sheep loaded into a trailer, you don't run into the pack of the sheep. You circle out around them and you put pressure on them so that they go the direction you want them to. And some people never get that. And I understand, and I try to be understanding and kind to people that don't have that skill set. Like I didn't grow up with dogs, but my sister is has no dog skills, and I have one sister who has a lot of dog skills. So, we all grew up in the same
Yep.
household, but we had different styles of how we learn things and how we function. So I think it's really important that you pick the one thing that you need to teach, and that's probably the emergency down,
Yeah.
as a skill. And you can teach it really simply if you're willing to take the time to do it. That you start with your dog close to you, maybe on the other side of the gate, just like a few inches away, and you teach them whatever command you want it to be. And it can be, the easiest thing is something the dog can see from far away. So putting your hand over your head is easy for the dog to see at a distance. And you can teach the dog to lie down, and then you get further and further and further. The dog stays on one side of the gate, you stay on the other, you get further and further and further back, so that the dog eventually learns that that tool, that is the
Mhm.
thing you need to learn so that you will be safe. So if the dog runs out the front door, or the dog, gets out of the yard, gets out of the fenced yard, if something catastrophic happens, and it does, even
Always.
though you probably double gated everything and you think you're really careful and you've taught the kids not to do that, it still happens. So you need to teach that emergency down, because the dog isn't going to know if they're on the other side of the road and they see you and they want to start running towards you and there's a semi coming between you and the dog. Can
Mhm.
you stop the dog and keep them from getting schmucked on the road. And those are really important skills for us to teach the dog. So they they take time, but they're not hard. You just need to take the time to do it. And we're way off topic for life, for ages, but
No, we're not. This is teenagers. We were on teenagers.
that's
We
oh,
just kind
that's
of
right.
went down a little squirrel rabbit hole.
That's right.
That's good.
Again,
Teenagers. Teenagers need to learn boundaries. Teenage dogs, teenage children, teenage ponies. They all need to learn boundaries, right?
good
It's
luck with
just
that.
a thing. And it's our job. It's our responsibility because we love
Yeah,
our family, pets, children, cats, dogs, monkeys, horses, that it's our job to teach them those boundaries. And so I think that's really,
absolutely.
really good. And I love the
Absolutely.
emergency down. The story of the Great Dane is amazing.
Doggett simplifies the puppy buying journey by connecting families with the perfect breed and responsible, health-verified breeders. They are the only breeder marketplace that verifies health clearances and responsible breeding practices. Through their personalized puppy matcher tool and matchmaker services, they educate and guide buyers every step of the way, ensuring a seamless process and a perfect match for their lifestyle. From initial breed consultation to introductions with top breeders, Doggett makes responsible puppy ownership easy and stress-free.
And so now, our teenager has earned some permissions, right? Has approached. I tell people all the time, this doesn't apply to every breed, but it applies entirely to mine. Wire hairs don't turn into dogs, like dogs, until they're 2. Before that, they're like piranhas. And then they don't turn into good dogs until they're 5. And so that, 2 to 5, 2 to 6, sort of depending on your breed and its age and its size and all that, those are
And
adulthood.
gender plays a huge role.
Yeah. Girl dogs versus boy dogs. I don't know about you, but I would take a male in any breed every single time going away.
Not this chick. I'm a girl. I'm a girl dog all the time. I like my
That's so
bitches.
funny. I love my boys. They're big and dumb and happy, and it's just I love they don't fight with me over everything. And they're kind of,
Yeah,
they're
there
kind of
is that.
clumsy and they're kind of dirty and messy and they're kind of not very bright, but they're so much easier. So there
Yeah.
you go. From each side of the fence of which gender you like. So I do think it is somewhat breed specific. I will say, I think each breed has, and you talk to people and they have their opinions, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
it's
for
also
sure.
what you get along with, right? So now you've got this adult dog that's like earned its place and it's got its life lessons and it's got its, if you will, poop in a group. And you can now do some great things with your dog. You can go
Oh yeah.
do stuff and do events and I hang out on the couch watching Netflix. I mean, like, this is the great part of dogdom. This 2 to 5, 2 to 6 time frame.
And it's a blast, and there's so much fun stuff that you can do.
Yep.
So this is when you get out of the basic obedience class and you start doing fun things like agility or rally or scent work, or you start taking the dog to the national parks and the local lakes and all the fun things that you get to do.
Right.
But of course, you have to remember that not everybody loves dogs. 58% of the people own dogs. The other 42% probably don't want anything to do with them. So you can't just let your dog run up to everybody and, slobber all over them and, shed on them and all this stuff, because not everybody appreciates that. You can't let your big doopy dog run up to every other dog either. And, if just because your dog is friendly, it doesn't mean that the other dog is. And I talk to people all the time. They're like, I can't believe how dumb people can be. Like they said, oh, my dog's really friendly. Yeah, but mine will kill yours. So
Yeah.
let's not go there.
Or start
So
it and
again, you
get
need to have
killed or
control.
something. I think one of the
Exactly.
things that I find a really interesting conversation, within the dog show world, in the world that we live in, most people their dogs don't interact. Strange dogs don't interact. And in the general population, along the lines, I suppose, of the anthropomorphization or whatever it is. Everybody assumes that their dogs should be friends. Like dogs aren't necessarily don't want to be friends. Like I am a dog that does not want to be friends with everyone, and my dog is a dog that does not want to be friends with everyone. So understanding your individual dog and his desires and respecting other people's dogs, I think is such an
Oh yeah.
important conversation.
Yeah. And if your dog has had a bad experience with a German Shepherd, it's not going to like any German Shepherds. And it's not because your German Shepherd is bad. It just means that there was an unfortunate experience. And dogs aren't crazy. They're going to take that
Mhm.
lesson and carry it with them. And remember, it might be the corner they got attacked on, it might be the dog that attacked them, but they're going to remember that there was something unfortunate. So you want to be thoughtful about it. You want to be careful. And again, I don't want to anthropomorphize, but I think there are extroverts and I think there are introverts as far as dogs go.
100%.
Most golden retrievers are pretty much extroverts, like they love everybody, but not every dog is like that, and not every dog and every breed is the same. So again, knowing your dog, knowing their preferences, I think it's important that you identify that. I mean, I was at the dog show last week and they've got all these yellow things that you can put on their leashes that
Mm,
say caution and say, fearful. They have all these
right,
warning signs. And if somebody has that, respect it. If somebody tells you their dog isn't happy to see you, respect that.
right.
You need to be thoughtful enough that your dog doesn't end up getting in trouble
Mhm.
because they can have
Mhm.
some unfortunate legal action gets
Yep.
held against them if things don't go especially well.
Yeah.
So think about those things. Now, I think it's important, even when you start off with a young dog, that you teach them to like certain things. Like, I think it's important that dogs like kids.
Mhm.
Not everybody has kids in their life. Not everybody wants kids in their life. I have employees who are like, ew, kids, yuck. Why would you want one of those? So their dogs aren't around kids. And so
Right.
that's important. So what I used to do is I would take Ritz crackers, those little Ritz crackers that have the cheese in between them, the little tiny
Yep.
ones, not the peanut butter ones because kids are allergic to peanut butter. But I would take those with me when I would go places and I'd have them in a little Ziploc bag and I would give them to a child that wanted to approach my dog and say,
Mm,
here, feed my puppy. And then the dog could eat something fun. And I liked doing those because if you take a dog biscuit and the kid puts it in their mouth, mother has a heart attack. If you take a Ritz cracker and the kid puts it in their mouth and it's not peanut butter, the parent's like, oh, well, she's two. She thought you were feeding her, not for her to
right.
feed the dog.
Right.
So you can do some really simple things. You can go to the playground and not look like a pedophile, but hang out where there are children so your dog gets to see them. You can take them to
Right.
Lowe's or Menards or Fleet Farm or Farm
Right.
and Fleet or
Right.
Tractor Supply or whatever
All the
pet stores.
places.
So
Right.
you start looking for places that you can get your dog out and socialize. And even to this day, we are now in 2025 and we still have people that go to dog shows and they're like, oh, well, it's not her fault. She was a COVID puppy. I'm like, are you kidding me? COVID was 5 years ago.
I know. And I
Get
have
over it.
I am I will just tell you I have an Agatha that was born the day the world shut down. I just looked it up. Her birthday is March 20th. It was the day they shut down the Louisville Dog Show.
Yep.
It was the day they shut down the
Yep.
world, and she was born on that day.
Yep.
And Spinoni are a breed that really need that early socialization, and if they miss it, they miss it. And she missed it.
Yeah.
And she's fine. You know, she's not hysterical, but she's never going to be what she might have been if I'd had the
Hmm.
opportunity to do more with her as a young dog.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, these things do have ramifications. And I think the
Hmm.
other thing to keep in mind, I think it's really important when you talk to dog trainers, and they will tell you, and I think this is so important to understand. You can train your dog, your, emergency drop in your kitchen, and it'll do it there every single time, 100%. And you take it to the yard or you take it to the park. And if you haven't practiced that and built that, the dog doesn't understand doing a thing in a
Right.
different place. Dogs
Right.
learn in a place. In the kitchen, if you raise your arm, that means I lie down. In the park, if you raise your arm, I don't know what you're talking about, right? That's
Hmm.
how dogs think. So I think it's super
Right.
important that people understand that and realize that they have to do this in more than one place. And all the things that you
Mhm.
did to train your dog in the kitchen, you then have to go and train your dog in the yard, and then take it and train
Mhm.
the dog in the park. And it won't
Mhm.
take as much repetition or as many times, but they have to understand that that training piece means the same thing in different places.
Right. And Ian Dunbar did a really good job of explaining that. I really love some of these dog trainers that have been around for a long time. They do a great job. Ian Dunbar still has dog training classes, and you can find his
Mhm.
stuff online.
Mm.
He and his son are now training. But he talks about dogs being conditional learners. They don't generalize the way you and I do.
Right.
We tend to take a lesson and generalize it to other situations. Dogs are situational learners. And so, like you said, if you taught it in the kitchen and the kitchen isn't the park, then they may not have that life lesson. So
Right.
you do have to set them up for success. So sitting at your left hand side, I mean, when you say sit, that means come to my left hand side and sit. I think it's kind of interesting, especially show dog people are really, I think, incredibly guilty of this, is they will say, well, you can't teach my dog to sit because they have to stand in the show ring.
Right.
Okay, if your dog is so stupid it can't learn two words, stand and sit, then your dog shouldn't deserve to be in the show ring. I'm sorry, I'm pretty strict about that. Your dog can learn two words. If you don't want them to sit, then you teach them the word stand. Dogs can learn several hundred words. Service dogs can learn easily more than 250 words. So even the simplest big dump dopey male dog can probably learn two or three words.
So
In
what?
my world, sit means sit, down means lie down,
Yeah.
off means don't jump on me.
Yes.
Down doesn't mean stop jumping on me. And my sister, this is where my sister and I got into it, is she's like, well, I said down, and I said, well, if you want the dog to lie down, that's the right word. If you want the dog to stop jumping, then the word is off or something else. I mean, you can teach your dog to poop on a leash with a command. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Service dogs learn this stuff because when you live in an apartment building or you work in a big office building and you are in a wheelchair
Mhm.
and you have to take your dog outside at your lunch break, and the dog can't go diddling around in the grass. It
Right.
has to go out, urinate, defecate, and get back into the house or into the building. You have to teach your dog to poop on command. You can do that. Service dogs do it. So if we can do that with service dogs, they're not any smarter than anybody else's dog. You can teach them those words. Now, there are some dogs that probably have higher IQs than others. I'm not going to get into that. That's complicated. But dogs can easily learn a handful of words.
Yes.
So, but the most important part of it is that you use the same word that everybody else in your house uses. So if you want them to
Consistent.
poop on command with the use of the word in Swahili, then great, teach them that word. But your dog doesn't know that off is different than down, and your dog doesn't know go potty is different than hurry up, is different than poop,
Right.
is different than, whatever term you. So you have to have a family meeting and decide what word are we using for these commands, and then you have to be consistent. Now, when my kids were small, I would take them with me to the dog training class when I would take the puppy. And I would have taught the kids, I'd be like, okay, when you want the dog to sit, this is what you do. And they would not listen to me. They'd push on the dog's rump to get him to go down and all this stuff. And then they'd come back from class. They'd come to class with me and they'd go, Mrs. Lauer said we're supposed to do it this way. I'm like, yes. And that's what I've been saying too. But Mrs. Lauer is apparently smarter than I am because she's not your mother.
She's not your
So
mother is the
again,
really important part of this.
exactly. Exactly. So have that family meeting so that you all are in agreement on what terms you're going to use. There, you can teach even a 2-year-old child
Yep.
the very simple commands, and you can teach them the basic stuff, because those are really important things for the dog to. I mean, your dog should respect your 2-year-old. Now that's a little tricky. So you have to stand behind the 2-year-old and reinforce the commands when you're teaching a puppy or a child how to work together. But there are definitely things you need to do. Like your dog should not attack your 2-year-old if the 2-year-old goes over and puts their hand in the food bowl.
Yep.
You need to teach the dog that that is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Any teeth touching skin of any kind, whether it's yours or the dog's, the 2-year-old's or another dog, unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Teeth never touch skin.
Yep.
Never touch skin.
Yep.
So there's some basic rules of survival, because if your teeth touch skin and break skin, you're in trouble. You're dead dog. There is no allowance for that.
Yeah.
So I'm not joking around when we say some of these things are important. You break grandma's hip because you knocked her down, you bite the 2-year-old, you go to doggy heaven, and
Yeah.
that's not cool.
And
That
it's
is
not,
totally on
honestly,
you.
not right. Not the dog's fault. So I'm going to go back to my mantra, which is firm, fair, and consistent. No means no.
Yep.
Fair, you can't correct a dog for doing something that you've never taught it not to do. And consistent. It's the same all the time.
Yep.
Those three things.
Well, they don't have a conscience.
Right.
They don't have a conscience. They don't know right from wrong.
Right. Exactly. They only know the guidelines we give them. And so if you think about everything in the concept of firm, fair, and consistent, firm doesn't mean you're beating the dog. It just means it's always the same. Right. So people have, like been off put by firm. I'm like, that's not what that means. Firm means it's always no. No is no, period.
Mm-hmm.
And another, dog trainer, sometime dog trainer speaking here. Please, dear baby apples, please, when you give your dog a command or a direction or however you would like to discuss that, you say no. You do not say no, because dogs read our tonal inflections. No is a statement. No is a question. And the dogs hear it as such. And this goes for everything. We also do not do no, because the dog didn't hear anything after the first no. And the more times you say it and the more times he ignores it, the more you have trained him to ignore you.
Yep. No means no the first time.
Yes.
Because otherwise the dog's going to wait till you've said it 17 times before they go, oh, I guess she really was serious about that. I should probably do that. Yeah, dogs don't have a conscience. They don't know right from wrong. It's not their fault. We have to teach them what they have to know. And if they look guilty, it's because you yelled at them, not because
sad.
They had a conscience. Yes, they don't have a conscience. They don't know it's bad to steal the steak off the breadboard. I mean, if it's there, and dogs are taught that in the world of limited resources, you better get what you get. So dogs aren't going to know that was the wrong thing to do. They're going to be like, oh, I thought that was there for me. I didn't know just because you put it up there. You know that thing you have on your countertop that has a little digital keypad on it? That is not a microwave. That is a place that you put food on the counter that you don't want the dog to steal. So when you're thawing out the roast.
That is a food locker.
Exactly. You brought home a fresh loaf of bread. You're thawing out a roast. You've got the fish fillets ready to go in the breading.
Or my solution, put the dog in the crate so then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, yeah, but sometimes
there are times that a crate is a wonderful tool and keeps the dogs and my food safe. So that's all I got.
Yes. Yeah. Many, many years ago, when my son was probably 2, my mother-in-law made a birthday cake for him. And it was this big sheet cake, and she had put these little adorable plastic zoo animals on it. And it was too big to fit in the microwave. I actually had a microwave then. It was, it's a long time ago. It was when microwaves first came out. But it was too big for the microwave, so I put it in the oven. Well, my mother and Dan's mother came to visit, and I was planning on making a turkey for a birthday party. And I had it thawed and ready to go in the oven, and I had to go to the clinic for an emergency. So I said to my mother and my mother-in-law with the 2 children, so I leave 2 responsible 50-something-year-old adults with 2 small children, and said, okay, at such and such a time, I need you to turn on the oven, take out the cake, turn on the oven, and put the turkey in. So they turned on the oven, forgot to look in at first. 2 responsible 50-year-old adult women forgot, smelled the plastic melting, turned off the oven, grabbed the cake out, put it on top of the stove, and then put the turkey in. So when I walked in the door 2 hours later, I said, geez, I don't smell the turkey cooking. And they went, oh yeah, we turned on the oven, turned it off, forgot to turn it back on. So we didn't have turkey that day because the turkey was still raw. Yeah, so,
you know what? I'm going to just tell you, Marty, all of that could have been solved with a dog crate. I'm just saying.
But, they didn't want the dog in the crate because they wanted her to be out.
If you put the dog in a crate, you don't have to put the cake in the oven and not cook the turkey. That's all I got. That is literally all I got on that.
Totally. And it's not that I oppose crates because I use crates.
Oh
I
my
use
God.
crates responsibly.
I
I
know.
think they're a
I
wonderful
know.
tool, but
Mm. I'm just saying,
they wanted the
sometimes it's a
dog and the
lot,
kids.
but it's a safety mechanism. It saves your
It is.
birthday cake and your turkey.
It does. But you thought, you thought two 50-year-old adult
No,
grandmothers
no, I am a
could
50-year-old
probably
adult
manage
something.
it.
That's what I would have done. I'd have turned.
Okay, well, there you go.
So he used the dog crate, solves all the problems. Okay, all right. We went through that. We beat it to death. Next up, we next week we're gonna talk about our senior citizens. But I just kind of
Good.
want to launch into that with the idea that our dogs obviously age very differently. I have a
They do.
Chihuahua and a Shiba that are both, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. If you have an Irish Wolfhound, that's not going to happen, right? So there's a lot of variability, and there's a lot of things that change as our dogs get older. And I don't know why my mic is being so weird. Lance might have to fix that little bit right there. But anyway, I think that it's important to realize that as our dogs get older, their brains change a little bit. And so we're going to talk about that next week. Kind of think about easing our dogs into their seniorhood, how to keep them young and healthy and happy as long as possible. Things that we can do with them as they get older to, just make that transition easier. So we'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of this is medical, some of this is not. But yes, I definitely want to go through gracefully helping our
Yep.
dogs to age because
Yep.
there's some really cool tools that we have that many people are unaware of. So we're going to do a little educational piece. That'll be fun.
Love it. I love it. I'm looking forward to it. All right, y'all. Next week we will be moving on to our senior citizens who hopefully have quit stealing the turkey off the counter so we don't have to hide it in the oven.
You never
And melt the
know.
birthday candles. I'm loving it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you never know.
We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks so much, Marty.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Marty and Laura Show. We're excited to bring you these unique, fun, fact-based conversations about pet health. We hope you'll join us on social. Stop by the website to sign up for an extra tip of the week for your pet. While you're at it, do us a favor, please, and leave a review wherever you find your podcasts. The Marty and Laura Show is produced by Pure Dog Talk, Inc., sound design and editing by Premium Audio Services.